Woohoo! It's Aloha Friday! Woohoo! Chee-hoo! How's everybody doing so far today? Are you staying positive? Because you know that's the only way to be. And now let's get ready to get ourselves some skills and learn how to turn this into a nice pivot table, just like this. And pivot tables are what are called the filter on steroids. So today you're going to learn 3 things that all data must have before you can turn it into a beautiful pivot table like this. Let's check it out. All right, everybody. So check it out. We've got a whole range of data right over here, and we want to do something with it. We want to analyze it. So somebody said, hey, maybe you should filter it out. Maybe you should tell me who are all of the, what are all the appliances sold by state and who bought them? What are all the appliances sold by state and who bought them? And you think to yourself, yeah, this information is on here. So how can I do it? Well, the answer, when you have a large amount of data that you want to summarize and quickly filter out and run a report just to find out the specific data that you need, well, just use a filter on steroids, the pivot table. However, there's 3 things that all of your data ranges, like this data range, must have before you can turn it into a pivot table. So listen up. Here we go. 3 things you must have in all of your data ranges before you can make a pivot table. So the first thing that you want to make sure you always have is a header row. You should always have a header row, number 1. Number 2 is you want to make sure that you always have repeated data. And here we have repeated data. So 1, you always want to have column headers. 2, you want to have repeated data. And number 3, well, we need to have some numerical data. So column headers, repeated data, and numerical data, and then you can make a pivot table. And there's shortcuts that you can use to make a pivot table. Here we know that we have all of the 3 requirements to generate a pivot table. So let's use a shortcut. Let's say Alt N V. And let's go ahead and boop, enter, and launch a pivot table from here. So the Alt N V, it's not a secret magical shortcut. All I'm doing is, well, you can use Excel without a mouse. What happens if the battery on your mouse dies and you got no mouse? I'm done for the day, boss. I got no power. I gotta go home till tomorrow. No, not that. Just press the Alt key. Let's say I want to launch a pivot table. So I press the Alt key and it highlights all of the places where I can click. And so I see, hey, I can go right ahead and select N for insert, Alt, N, insert, and for a pivot table, I press V. Boop. And then I can just press enter, or I could have just pressed T, just like that. And then now Excel selected my data range and said, hey, look, boom, let's go ahead and make a pivot table. Or here's another quick technique from you. You can launch the pivot table wizard. And this is a legacy shortcut. It's old school. And you're going to press the Alt, the D, and then the P. And then that launches the pivot table wizard. And woo, we'll have to have a whole nother class to see what we can do with the old school pivot table wizard. Let's kick it up a notch. Let's bring it up to the 21st century, and let's go to the Home tab and take a look at the Analyze Data button right there. So let's go ahead and click on the Analyze Data button. It's selected our entire data range. It's analyzing our data, and here we can just ask it a question if you like. Or we can see what recommendations it's made based on the analysis of our data. And here we see order value by state and last name. That sounds like something that we wanted. We want to know what the orders were by state and who ordered them. There we go. So let's go right ahead and just insert the pivot table right there. And you're going to be amazed. Insert the pivot table. Boom. And there's our pivot table. Awesome. Look, we have it by states, by individual, and amounts purchased. Pretty cool, right? Now let's make it pretty. Let's kick it up a notch. Let's go right ahead and click into the pivot table, click into the report, and then now we see that we have contextual tool tabs. These tabs only appear based on the context that you are in. So if I click outside of the pivot table, they're gone. Notice I'm clicking right outside the pivot table, and now the contextual tool tabs are gone. Let's go ahead and click into the pivot table. Click the pivot table report. That's actually what that is. It's the pivot table report. And now we see the contextual tool tabs. I'm going to click on pivot table analyze, and I'm going to say, hey, let's put in a slicer right there. A slicer is a filter for my filters. So now I'm going to go right ahead and say, well, what kind of slicer do we want? And let's just say by category. And then I'll just press OK. I could use all these slicers if I wanted to. So I go by category. And then I'm going to go ahead and resize it. Put it right over here. And now I notice when you look at your ribbon, you have another contextual tab, slicers. And here you can go right ahead and work with your slicer. Let's go ahead and make it orange. Boom, nice. All right, so now what we need is, let's click on the pivot table right here, and let's rename that. Let's call that total order value. And you notice how I'm clicking in this cell right here, and I'm actually renaming inside of the formula bar. Now let me go right ahead and click on row labels, and I'm just going to call this state. Just like that. And now I'm going to go back into my design contextual tool tab, and I'm going to give it an orange to match the slicer. Let's go with that one right there. I like it. You can get to this just by pressing Control T and turning all your data into just a table, not a pivot table. We talked about that just the other day. So now let's go ahead and put in that chart. Let's insert the pivot chart. So let's go back to the pivot table analyze, and right in here we can just say, hey, let me know the the pivot chart that we want to have right there. And then we can just, let me give you a quick tip real quick. Put the marquee inside of your pivot table report and press F11. F11, that's this one, my friends. F11. And those of you that have been learning from me for a while, you know exactly what the F11 does. It's one of the first shortcuts that I ever teach because it's fun. So put the marquee in the data, and then we press, well, F11 puts our default chart in a separate worksheet, and that's actually the chart we want, a clustered column chart. We want to put it in the same sheet. So then we press Alt F1, and there it is, Alt F1. Let me zoom in right here and type it in. Alt plus F1. Whoops. Alt plus F1. There we have it. That's the shortcut for inserting your default chart into the same worksheet. So we got our default chart in here. Let me go ahead and delete it. And let's just click back into the report, and let's go the long way. We'll go to our pivot table analyze, pivot chart right here. And now let's go ahead and click on it. And let's see the recommended charts. And here it's right off the bat, it's saying, look, you should try this clustered column chart. Nice, which is what we did. So let's press OK, and there we have it. We could have just pressed what? Alt F1. That's right, just like it says right there. All right, so now we can just go right ahead and then resize it, and then just start checking our options. Well, we want to go ahead and make this chart match the slicer and match the report. So let's just check our options, and let's go right in here to our chart styles. And within our chart styles, let me minimize this, chart styles. There we have our chart styles on this side. Okay, let me close this pivot table field list so we can maybe see the chart styles here. I'm gonna make it smaller because I want you to see the chart styles right next to it. There we go. I'm gonna go with color, and I'm gonna pick this colorful palette number 4 right there because it makes it nice and orange. Now I'm gonna resize the chart, make it nice and pretty for us. And there we have it, my friends. Now you can say, hey, where's all the appliances? Who bought the appliances in which states? And there we have it. Those are the people right there that bought appliances in those states right there. What about clothing? Well, there we have it right there. And that's it. Wasn't that easy? All it takes is just some basic Excel skills. And that's what we focus on at Don't Get Mad, Get Skills. The basics. Excel basics. Because without the basics, you're never going to be able to make it to the next level. And when you do, you're always going to be struggling, spending a bunch of time searching for answers and asking all your colleagues for help. So come on now. Go ahead and subscribe to our channel, and you can get a daily lesson that's going to help you catapult your skills to the next level. And remember, we got a workshop coming up September 8th. More coming on that. And I'm going to teach you 30 power shortcuts. My 30 favorite powerful shortcuts that are going to just help you take it to the next level, my friend. And remember, I love you. Keep on learning. And most of all, don't get mad. Get skills. Aloha.